Learn from historical examples that I see, but training them and making sure that they understand and see the relations which are in these examples. This is what is called training in AI.
Whose ethics and whose morality will it be?
Ours. So that banks already for many years use a lot of advanced statistics. They were always exploring with new mathematical techniques. Banks are very information driven. In fact, we don't make anything.
Bart, great to see you. How are you doing?
Happy to be here. Very well, very well. Thank
Welcome
you.
to the very first Punirman Conversations. It's funny, we worked together on a big data project quite a few years ago. And that time you were working with a consulting company, and I was also working with some other company. But that was fun. I don't think we met, but we interacted via video call, I think, and via telephone. And now a few days later, I'm having a conversation with you, and the very first conversation. So I'm very happy. Thanks a lot.
Likewise, likewise.
So tell us a little bit about yourself. Where are you from? What was your schooling? What was your education?
So I was born in Belgium, at the east side of Belgium. In fact, very near to the Dutch border, very near to Maastricht. That's where I grew up. In the meantime, I'm living in Leuven, in the biggest university city of Belgium. Already since I was young, I was very interested in mathematics and sciences. I think it was already then my great passion. And that's also why I started after my high school education in sciences. My first degree was in physics, in fact. I hesitated a bit already at that moment, engineering or physics, but in the end I studied physics. And I started at a smaller university in Belgium to do my bachelor. I finished that bachelor there, but then I moved here to the University of Leuven, where I in the end graduated as a master in nuclear physics. But already during my studies, it was studies of physics, although I'm still very passionate about physics. The job possibilities in physics are obviously rather limited. It was already then the big boom of IT. It was around the 2000s, so already then they were hiring a lot of us to go not into physics, but into IT. And I was looking for something else to educate myself more in IT. And then, in fact, I chose the master in artificial intelligence. And that's, in fact, where it all started. I did this master in AI here also at Leuven. After the master in AI, my passion was still not fulfilled. My thirst for knowledge and AI was still not fulfilled. So I continued doing a PhD here at the University of Leuven, also on the same topic, AI and neural networks already then. And in fact, that defined the rest of my career, because I'm very happy that I could spend almost my whole career in this fascinating domain.
Interesting, very interesting. So you studied nuclear physics, and you chose not to make bombs or electricity. Interesting. Nice. So what was your PhD topic about?
So already then, there was a big hype on neural networks. I think neural networks, for those who don't know, that are also a bit the underlying ID and mathematics behind what we are seeing today. Everything what we are seeing today, the deep learning, the transformer networks, the large language models. From a mathematical perspective, it's the same idea as that what we were studying at that moment. And already at that moment, also the focus was how can we scale them? And we were struggling with that. There was a very specific new algorithm, new methodology, which was called kernel machines, that was popping up then. But they were really struggling to scale them up. And scale them up means scaling them up in terms of training. So, neural networks are these kind of artificial intelligence algorithms that you need to train, that you need to learn, like us human beings. They learn from examples. They learn from historical examples that I see. But training them and making sure that they understand and see the relations which are in these examples. This is what is called training in AI. And very often, the more training set, the bigger your training set is, the more examples that you're studying, the more complex it becomes from a computational perspective. Not so much mathematical, but from a computational perspective. And that was, in fact, already then the focus of my thesis. In the meantime, new evolutions came up. They were able to scale them up, and that means also, and that was in fact the reason why they could make them more and more bigger, those algorithms. So today, if you read about it, they are having billions of parameters, those models. So they really are scaled up enormously, and that's also a bit the magic in it, because by scaling them up, they realized that they could do very complex tasks. So that's and again, the result of that we see today in the whole hype around ChatGPT.
So you did your PhD, and you're also now working in a field or in a kind of job where you can apply your PhD straight away.
Mhm.
Fantastic, interesting. So you're currently employed with a very large Belgian bank, and you're working with AI. So tell us how is the banking industry in general being transformed by AI?
You need to know that banks already for many, many years use a lot of advanced statistics. They were always exploring with new mathematical techniques
True.
to become better in banking. That goes from the pure banking business and the risk management of banking, where a lot of mathematics is involved. They use AI already for many years also in marketing and sales to try to understand the needs of their clients. So they are very much interested into the topic. And obviously also with the new things coming up and the new capabilities that AI offered in the last years, there's certainly a high interest in it. And even at this moment, it's really high on the ExCo's agenda, not only of our bank, but I think all banks in general. Where and how can we apply AI more efficiently in the organization? How can we really, really benefit from it? The reason for that, I think, is quite obvious. Banks are very information driven. And in fact, we don't make anything. We don't build cars. We don't build any physical products. The whole business model of banks is using information on the markets and making a profit out of that. And so information management and processing information is very important in banks. It's not only done by the IT people; it's also done by the data people, the AI people, the statistical researchers in the organization. And banks very well realize what the added value of that is, and that's why it's very high on the agenda today.
So that if you talk to an average layman on the street who has a little bit of knowledge of AI, then ChatGPT is one of the applications which a few of us are familiar with. Also, Mid-Journey for the more artistically bent. But in your line of work, you're not building an AI where you can communicate with or help us understand. Are you building when you say a bank works on AI? Are you building models to process massive amounts of data, or is it more for interfacing bank workers with a very intelligent system? So how is it different from you as a banking employee than from me as a banking consumer?
Yeah, banks are investing on both, in fact. So as in many industries, you can use AI for different purposes. You can use AI to automate and to improve your internal processes, and that's where obviously we as employees of the bank are confronted with. Let's not forget banks are still very paper rich. There are a lot of contracts, a lot of documents floating around in the organization need to be processed by a lot of people. The whole banking industry, because it's already so old, has not always gone through all the digital optimization and throughout all their processes. So there's still a lot of paperwork to be done. There are still a lot of analysis to be done on documents. And so what you have been seeing the last couple of years is that banks have been using a lot of AI to optimize those processes, to get information, to do information extraction, to get the best out of all the information that we have in the organization, and in the end, to make sure that the servicing that we can provide as a bank goes quicker and faster and smoother. But that's mainly for us internally. The client will only experience that by a faster processing of their questions. But we're also using it for you directly as a client to see, okay, what are your needs? To predict better based on the information that we have on you, to predict better what are your needs, what do we need to propose to you as a client? Are there certain products that could be really interesting for you to look into at this moment? It's the traditional marketing and sales. And more, we also see that banks are using AI as a channel to communicate with their clients. And that's what you're referring to, the interaction with the clients, the chatbots, and potentially even ChatGPT-like chatbots in the near future will be something that, it's not will be something, is something that all banks will work with. I think you saw already today that almost all banks are now experimenting with chatbots, and a lot of banks are even experimenting now with ChatGPT-like chatbots to better be able to communicate 24/7 with their clients on their basic needs. Does that mean that banks will only use that? That will depend from bank to bank, I think. Some will go fully into the digital domain and will only interact with their clients through digital channels. Other might prefer, like ours, that still the relationship banking is quite important, and the human aspect is still quite important.
Interesting. Interesting. Which could mean that in the future, if I use my banking app on my phone, or let's say on my desktop, then I might be able to speak to the app instead of typing things in. Because right now, if I the way I communicate is by clicking various options. So if I have to make a transfer, or if I'm chatting, I still have to type in things. So are banks also working on a voice interface for clients?
Indeed, we are. Indeed, we are. So it's just this is the way how you communicate today. Indeed, as you mentioned it yourself, it's still done by typing. The goal is also to do it through voice. Don't forget, voice is not an easy thing. And you even see the GAFAs struggling with that. All of the people who already experimented with Siri and with Alexa, it doesn't go always very smooth because very often people have an accent. There's background noise. All of that makes it very difficult to really understand what the person really needs. So text is still an easier way to communicate because you see what he is typing, and there's not a lot of confusion about that. But that voice will be the next one to tackle. For sure it is. For sure it is.
Banks work with hundreds of thousands of transactions per second,
Mhm.
and fraud is a big part of, or a big potential in those hundreds of thousands of transactions a second. So are banks thinking of applying AI to detect in real time the potential of fraud, or to detect as soon as possible if a fraud has happened?
For sure, I think banks, so fraud, risk management, money laundering is very high on the agenda of banks. And these are all three completely different aspects of it. But that it is a domain where banks need to do their utmost best and use everything that they have to prevent it is for sure something which they are doing. And also AI is part of that. So AI is used to do transaction screening, to really spot if there is intrusion in their networks on all different levels that can harm a bank. AI is used, and that's for sure something that is it's very secret. Obviously, banks will not communicate a lot about that, but that they're doing it. I think there's not one bank who is not doing it and who's not using AI for these kind of purposes to protect the end their clients.
So if a bank starts using AI more and more, and if different banks are using AI more and more, they each might be at different levels of competence and different levels of implementation. But then for me as a consumer, maybe the advantage of one bank over the other might diminish.
Mhm.
What's your opinion on that? Where would banks compete for clients and consumers in the future?
I think it all starts from the first hypothesis that you take. Will they all be using it? And there, I think you can clearly see already today it's not the case. How we see the neobanks, the smaller banks, the Revoluts and others that are very deeply going into that. They only want to be digital, and so therefore they will use a lot of AI. They will only communicate with their clients through digital channels. And then we have the more traditional banks that still value the relationship banking, the personal approach, the personal touch. They will handle also the more complex files, the more complex clients, the bigger corporates, the wealthy clients, people who have very specific needs. And for, to capture their needs, still the human aspect is very important. Will it be assisted with AI? For sure it is, but I think it is where do you put AI? Is it at the forefront or is it as a support? And both will use AI, but at a different stage in the personal or in the personal approach towards their client. And already today you can see it. You can really see that banks are taking a different position with respect to that.
How different are different major banks in the world? Let's say American banks or Swiss banks, Western European banks, Netherlands, Belgium, Chinese banks, banks in Southeast Asia. How are they on the maturity for using AI, whether it is in the background or in the foreground, or for just processing massive amounts of data, maybe post facto? So detecting if a, detecting fraud maybe a few seconds or a few minutes later. So where do you think are we better in the European Union when compared to others?
Unfortunately not. So there was a Bain study done, and unfortunately from an AI perspective, obviously, I'm not saying that this is unfortunate from a banking management perspective, but there was so I'm referring to a Bain study. There was a Bain study done a couple of years ago that compared banks on that aspect. Where are they with respect to the maturity level, and how deeply are they already using AI within the whole organization? And what you could clearly see from that study was that the American banks are really taking the lead. So the JP Morgans and others are majorly investing in AI, are setting up research departments together with the GAFAs. They even attract the top researchers from the Googles and the other organizations. They really see this as something on which they want to differentiate themselves with respect to the rest. The European banks are certainly following. But it depends. It's very diverse. You have companies and banks that decide not to go into that. The smaller banks very often struggle with it because, let us not forget, it still requires also a significant investment. But you can clearly see it. And we had discussions already then also with the people of Bain. What is the real cause of that? And it's both culturally and economically that it can be explained. Culturally, because American banks are very often a lot more aggressive in the market. They are willing to take bigger bets. They are willing to take more risks on adopting new technologies. And next to that, and that's the economical aspect, obviously, is also because they have an economical advantage. If they roll out something for a very huge population that the English-speaking economy has, the return of investment obviously is a lot higher, and that is what is making it still difficult for some of the local European banks or the more local banks to really get a benefit out of AI. Their return of investment is lower because they cannot roll it out on huge populations.
Interesting. Moving to a slightly different topic, Bart, you had mentioned to me once that you don't believe in AGI, artificial general intelligence. Why is that?
It's not so much that I don't believe in it, but it's not something where I put my focus on. It's not my goal. AGI is an ambition that the research community has. They really want to build something. Is it a computer? Is it what is it in the end? If you realize it, but I would like to reach a level of intelligence that is comparable to the level of intelligence that we human beings have on all different aspects. Now, that's nice as a research ambition, but I'm more an engineer. I'm more in the corporate world. For me, it needs to be practical, and that's for me the biggest ambition. But even more than that, I think already when I was at university, I remember that I went to a big library here at university, a statistics library, and there was a whole multiple room filled with statistics books. And I already then made a reflection, if only a portion of that could be used in industry, how beautiful would that be? And that was also my first realization when I went into the industry. If you see where research today stands and where what is used from all that knowledge in today's economy and in today's corporate world, the gap is huge. And I have more ambition to really go at the lower level and push that a bit up to make sure that basic concepts are used more and more and more within the organization, but then very widespread in the organization instead of focusing on this very ambitious goal and then put all your attention there. I think especially for companies and larger organizations, making sure that already a smaller step is made throughout the whole organization by adopting AI, statistics, better technologies will bring them already a big step further in the adoption of that.
So you focus more on the practical application of AI
Yeah,
rather than some futuristic digital being who might be as intelligent or maybe more intelligent than us.
yeah, indeed. And if you can make the comparison to robotics, also there you have the researchers that would like to make the humanoid robot, and the examples of that is Boston Dynamics.
Boston
That
Dynamics.
you see always these beautiful videos of robots running around. It's taking them a lot of effort, a lot of time, and it's an ambition. Yes, very nice, but we don't need that to see really the benefits already from robotics. And then, in fact, we have a robot all in our kitchen, which is called a dishwasher, and it helps us a lot in our daily lives, and it doesn't look like us. So do you need to have something that looks like humans to be to help us? No. And again, to make the parallel back to AI, the same thing holds there too. We are very far in what is called weak AI. So AGI is what I call strong AI, the ambition to create this one big human level like intelligence. Or we have weak AI. We say, okay, let's see in smaller problems, how far can we push a part of human like intelligence into a certain domain and take the benefit out of that. Right? Example that you make on voice recognition. Let's see already how far we can understand language or transcribe language into text, and then we can work with the text afterwards. There's a lot of AI on that. It's a very narrow domain, but advancing on that is very good. It's already very good. It will contribute to the bigger picture of AGI, but let's not wait for AGI to start using it. I think we can already benefit a lot today from what we have.
True. So you mentioned a narrow focus of AI or narrow AI.
Mhm.
And one of the practical examples which many of us use of narrow AI is navigation.
Mhm.
So whether it's via our phone or via our car, there's a lot of smart software and a lot of data from, hopefully anonymous, a lot of data from different browsers, different mobile phones, and different apps being pumped into this AI processing machine, which can tell us the road where we are on, that there's an expected traffic jam ahead of us. So when you look at narrow AI for, let's say, the Tesla brand of cars or the navigation on a mobile device, and when you compare that to the narrow AI in the banking industry, would you say that in comparison to the car industry or, let's say, navigation, the banking industry, the narrow use of AI in banking is more or less the same, at the same level of maturity, as the same level of prediction, data processing, or is one ahead than the other?
It's a good question. I think the big difference between navigation and cars and how we use today within the bank AI is that navigation is one particular problem. It's a very hard one, and also the automotive sector is really struggling with that, and is even admitting at this moment that complete self-driving cars, it's
Still
not
a dream.
realistic. It's still a dream. It's not realistic on the short term. But how did I realize that? Is by combining a lot of different techniques, lidars, uh, projection of cars. I'm not an expert on that, but it's really a combination of a lot of different sensors, a lot of different techniques, a lot of different predictions that I make with one goal: navigation. Are banks doing something similar? Today, not. It's not that we have this one particular ambition that we are setting forward, at least not that I know. But we are using narrow AI still at a lot of different levels. We are using it, as I said, to predict better customer behavior, to predict the markets, to predict risks that we are taking as a bank, to automate the processes within the bank, to better interact with our clients through digital channels. So if you add everything up, you also start to see that banks in total are becoming more and more and more AI driven. And what I hope to realize is that it's also seen as something normal, like with navigation. Nobody today asks the question anymore, like, yeah, but should I turn on my GPS? No, you step into the car, you use your navigation system. You don't question it. You do realize that it makes mistakes, but you consider it as something normal. I hope we will realize the same thing with AI within the banking sector and other sectors. That this fear is stepping away. That is even not seen anymore as AI. It's something that helps us. That something sometimes is wrong. Like we human beings are also sometimes wrong, but we still benefit from it a lot. And I hope that we really get to that level, that this is considered as something normal and not anymore as something very special that we should be afraid about.
Good point. Good point. I yeah. I If I reflect on myself, then a few years ago, when I bought my first TomTom navigator, it was a very small box which you had to attach via an ugly connection device onto your windscreen from the inside. I used to worry about my privacy, but now, yeah, we just assume that we believe the user agreement that they have on a mobile phone, and we believe that it'll be anonymous. That they won't track us, or it'll be anonymous in general. So, how is anonymity taken care of in the banking industry? Because I imagine that in industries such as medicine, let's say hospitals or
Hmm.
doctors, and banking, data privacy is really important, much more than maybe just navigating streets. So how, in general, whether it's in banking or whether let's say it's in the medical industry, how would these industries uh, restrict AI from accessing data elements in the database,
Hmm.
which would be on the borderline or which would impinge on data privacy of the customer or the client or the patient?
Banks are very careful by using AI and harming the privacy of their clients. Like in
They're
the
used to
medical,
it as well, since even before they started using AI, they're used.
obviously, but the banking business is built on trust. And if there is something that you need to preserve, is that trust. From the moment that your client don't trust you anymore as a bank with their more important, the most important assets that they have, their money that they have, their assets, their financial assets that they have. If you lose that trust, yeah, then you're out. Then they leave you, and then it's game over. So obviously, banks don't want to risk that. So they're taking data privacy, but even also the ethical elements on AI very seriously already for many years. I think it's also one of the reasons why you see that the banks are still a bit in the following side and pushing the limits of AI. They are not like the GAFAs, they are not like the Facebooks, the Metas of the world. They are more careful about what they will do with the information that they have on their clients. So indeed, data privacy is something which is very important for banks. It slows us down, but for a very good reason, I think. And it will remain like that. And it goes beyond the privacy itself. It also goes towards the level of the ethics. What will we do with AI and what will we not do with AI? And this is something which is really, really questioned and asked every time when we start a new product and project on AI. Do we really want to do that? How far do we want to push that? How is the privacy of the client preserved? Um, this is something that is really requested also from the regulators, but it is something also internally seen as a very important thing to take care of.
You mentioned ethics, and of course trust is very important. So you mentioned ethics, and I'm reminded of a couple of news stories somewhere on the internet where when AI was used to scan applicants who had submitted their application for a vacancy, then it was discovered that the AI had inherent biases, which were racial biases.
Hmm.
So when we talk about ethics and morality, and because AI has to be taught, so we have to teach AI everything, and after some time, it can learn on itself. There are there are different proponents or detractors about AI and the risk around ethics and morality. I mean, Elon Musk is one of them. Mo Goddard is also another one of them. So, if we have to teach ethics and morality to AI in general, regardless of the industry, how do we go about it? Whose ethics and whose morality will it be?
Ours, because it
And
learns from historical behavior and it will replicate the same behavior as we had in the past. So it will AI ever be unbiased? No, because it learns from our behavior. So it will replicate that behavior. The only thing what we can do is be more ethical ourselves, give that as input to our models, and they also will become more ethical over time. I sometimes read papers of scholars that really say, okay, AI should be unbiased, but how can it be unbiased? Because it only learns from us. Society is unbiased. Society is biased. It's not unbiased, and that's how we are already living together for thousands of years. Are these biases therefore good? No, they are not good. We should be aware of them, and that's also what we should certainly aim for at AI level. We need to be aware where the biases are. Can we always prevent them? No. If they are too strong, like racial biases and selection processes, we might even need to consider, let's not put these kind of models that but only replicate that behavior into production. Let's not do that. Let's try to do let's aim for another solution where we can prevent that, and that we need to make this tough decisions over time. I'm only in favor of that. That we need to make at a certain moment the decision, like based on the information that we have, which is historically too biased. We cannot and we should not put this knowledge into a model and therefore even enforce it, because that's the real danger that kicks in. It's the amplification, the reinforcement of these biases if you put them in AI. So awareness of which kind of biases that are in your data and therefore afterwards in your algorithms is something that we certainly need to have as organizations. And then every organization needs to really think how far they want to go to prevent that, and preventing then, should we then apply AI in certain domains, yes or no? It's also the reasoning and the whole thinking that went into the AI Act, the new European law, where they make this risk classification and where they also ask for certain applications that are really impacting the life of human beings, like having access to a job, having access to money, credits at the banking domain, or other elements being screened for reasons which are in the end not really necessary. Do we want AI in those domains? Because there are perhaps more risks than advantages in applying these technologies on this particular purpose.
Yeah, the EU AI Act is quite an interesting step.
Mm-hmm.
In your opinion, does it go far enough with, given where we are, let's say we limit ourselves to the EU, where we are, does it go far enough? Is it the first step? Should it do a lot more? Is it good enough across industries?
It's already a very bold step for
It is a very, it
for
is a bold
Europe
step.
to do that. Huh? It's the first region in the world where they really translate the best principles on AI, because today almost every institute, governmental institute, think tank has written the best principles on AI, but principles are still principles. You follow them or not. Europe went a step further and said, no, we're going to put this into a law. So this is already very bold. Is it far enough? Probably we need to adapt it over time. Probably we'll see that it will fall short on some domains, and then we need to adapt it. It's a very difficult balance that we need to maintain, because let's not forget, you can make it watertight. You can really close everything down. You can try to avoid
If that's
all
possible,
kinds
ever.
all
Yeah,
kinds of, if it's
yeah,
even possible, eh?
yeah.
But you can be very conservative on the risk side, and therefore kill every level of innovation and also advantage. Everything in life comes with risks, and we need to strike that balance. I think it's very good that we have an AI Act, because indeed it will show to the general European population that we are very serious about their privacy,
True.
that we are very serious about the ethical elements and the ethical impacts of AI. It will also mean, and again, I come back to the element of trust. It will also mean that people will still have trust in AI. I hope that they still will have trust in AI because they see that the companies are implementing those techniques. And that can be at the long run only be better for the general adoption of AI. What we probably will see at the short term is that it will slow down a bit, our general adoption and the innovation in AI before everything is clear and before that we really know how we need to implement that. But at the long term, I think it will only be better because it will make that people are really trusting what we are doing with AI. They will realize that they really can benefit from it, and then they will start using it. The opposite, I think, is a lot worse. Ignoring the risks, ignoring the disadvantages that AI can bring, and once they are then confronted with it, like we now see a bit with what's happening with social media and the fact that people start realizing that social media are in the end not there to also a bit steal a bit their private privacy and commercialize their privacy, makes that people are using it less. Let's avoid that for AI with clear regulation and guidelines.
Is this new act, is it related to or will it use the GDPR from a few years ago, which was more around data privacy and who's the data subject and how to take care of data privacy? So is it, do you think, because here we have an AI Act and data privacy is an important part of that, ensuring the privacy of consumers and sensitive people in the EU. So will we see a merging of these different kinds of acts in the EU? You think, will one make the other superfluous?
One is built on top of the other, and they all cover different aspects of it. GDPR is in general on all kinds of data processing. AI is a very particular data processing one, but it also includes in fact GDPR. So we need to respond to both. There are even more regulations. There are even local regulations with respect to AI, and one will build on top of each other. One will complement the other. Again, for the good reason. The only thing that I hope is that we succeed in correctly implementing it. What I've seen, and that's more a personal opinion, I'm a very big supporter of the general idea of GDPR, but if we see today how it's implemented, where we need to opt in, opt out on a lot of different levels. We need to assign the cookies. We need
It's
to
more an
apparently.
irritation than anything else.
It's an irritation, and the result of that is that we just always say yes or no depending on who you are, and if you start to not care anymore about it, and that's for me a bit of failure of the implementation of a very good of something that I really wanted to do with a very good intention, but the implementation of it was not really resulting in what we really want to achieve. I hope we will be smarter with the implementation of the AI Act.
True. So we have the AI Act, which lays down the groundwork of what you can and cannot do with regards to AI, at least in the EU. Mm-hmm. But if we think about a super intelligence, let's say fast forward 10, 15, 25, 50 years, whenever down the line, and we have a super intelligence, an AI, which is smarter than all of us combined. So maybe we are 8.5 billion in 50 years' time. And it's not Skynet, but something like that. How we have industries such as yours, the banking industry, which values trust so much that, as you mentioned, trust, ethics, morality, maybe even morality, are part of the entry criteria for starting a new project on AI. And then we have this act on top of it, which lays the groundwork. But considering that um, AI also, we would like AI to learn itself. We build models where they teach themselves based on the data. So if we create a super intelligence which is smarter than, let's say, all of us combined, wouldn't these acts and the local very diligent practices we use in companies, wouldn't they become redundant? So what I'm asking, Bart, is a superintelligence is, let's say, a double-edged sword. It might help us find solutions to all the genetic problems that we have, the genetic diseases that we have. It might help us solve Alzheimer's, cure cancer. But on the other side, Skynet is also a fear, and because as you mentioned, we are biased. Everybody is biased. We have a lot of subconscious biases which we don't even know. So how, purely from this philosophical point of view, somewhere in the future, how can we avoid a superintelligence, which might have negative impacts on society, on humanity?
I'm still rather optimistic about it. I want to look only at the positive sides of it. Yes, you can obviously think, like with every other technological evolution, going from the very famous dynamite, which also afterwards was not used for its purpose to be useful in mines, but more to kill people. You have it for almost everything. Nuclear power was invented to help the energy problem. In the end, they also built a bomb with it. Every technology has its advantages and its disadvantages. I still believe in the positive side of humans, that they will use it in the majority for good purposes, to help each other. I'm a very positive-minded person on that side, but that there will also be people who will use it for other more negative purposes. Already today we see that Gen AI is used to create fake news, to create misinformation. That's something where I think we need to learn to live with, like with every technology. Every technology can be misused. But by careful and good regulation around it, by careful and good awareness, general awareness of what it can do and what it not can do, I still think that in the end, we will choose the good part and not the bad part to apply these technologies. I'm not so much believing in the dystopian view that some try to create. We need to regulate everything. We need to be careful about it. The fear creation, which is at this moment sometimes a bit overtaking the debate on what should we do with AI, for me is not a correct one. That we need to be aware of it, yes. And that we need to act upon it, yes. And that we at every project need to ask ourselves, is it on the long run, what will be the implications of it? Of if we really push this to the limits, that's certainly something that we need to do. And these are not easy questions, but we should not avoid them.
These are not easy questions, because if we are talking about ethics, morality, we are talking about values. And if AI has to be taught like we teach our children, then then when a child from one value system grows up and meets an adult from another value system, even if from a different culture or different set of values from two different families in the same country, in the same culture, there is a potential for misunderstanding. So this will remain an interesting topic for at least our lifetime, I predict. But how will this act? I guess I know the answer, but I'm because you're a professional in the field, so I'm just I'm wondering what advice can you give us? How will this AI Act prevent skunk works created in secret within the EU? Let's forget about other countries. Let's forget about the EU working with other countries. Let's say a joint venture on a space program or something like that, or putting the next rover on Mars. But in restricted within the EU, how would this act prevent? A simple answer could be no, it cannot prevent, or there are some ways, because I could not understand that from the act. How will it prevent skunk works or AI projects in secret, which are intended to, you know, do more harm than good?
Mhm. I can only give my personal intuition about it. It's a bit like every law. There's a law, there's a regulation, and there are always people who will say, "I'm not following the law," on all different levels. Now, as it is a law, we need to believe in the legal system to help us preventing that. It gives them a mandate to say this goes too far, and we will prosecute you for that. We will bring you to justice, and you need to justify yourself in front of a judge because you clearly did not respect it. So it gives us now also a bit the stick to for those who really want to misuse it to afterwards confronted with that, that at least within Europe, we have laws that should prevent this from happening. So I believe that the whole legal system, as we now have this as a law, will put some constraints on that. That there still will be people who will not follow the law. Yeah, that's what we have. That's what is called criminality. That's what we have. As long as we don't have laws, we can't even do anything about it. As soon as we have laws, we can do something about at least do something about it.
We'll remain human after all.
Indeed,
Yeah.
indeed, indeed.
So, what advice would you give to, let's say, a business which has, regardless of the industry, a business which has a lot of money, which let's say has its master data and its data in order, which itself is a big deal. So, but it has a lot of money and it is pretty confident about the the accuracy, the reliability, the timeliness of its data as data sets, and is considering pumping in, let's say, serious money into AI. What advice would you give to the leaders of such a company?
Mhm. The first thing that comes to my mind is a famous sentence which is called at this moment Amara's law. Um, and it's not for AI in particular, but it is for technology in general. And he said at a certain moment, many years ago, technology is something which is overestimated on the short term and underestimated on the long term. And it
Mm.
certainly holds for AI, and it certainly holds, I think, for the new evolution which we see today. So be careful about what you expect from it. There's a lot of hype at this moment on Gen AI. That there are a lot of applications where we certainly can use it for, but I think we also will see the next coming year already the first major failures.
Mm.
Um, should that prevent us from starting? No, I don't think so, because I think on the long term, for sure, it will change how we work. This is for me a big boost that is giving to the domain of AI. We can do now suddenly a lot more than we could do in the past, and AI is there to stay. AI is there to stay, and as I already said, I think within a few years we will not give it any more the name AI. We consider it as just one
Mm.
of those tools that we have in our toolkit to solve problems, especially since now more and more people see what it can do. Everybody is experimenting with it. So I think the adoption of these new technologies will become very widespread and seen in a few years as something absolutely normal. So therefore, for the companies that want to jump on it, start. Start, please start. don't put all your eggs in one basket. It's like an investment strategy. Try to apply it at different places in your organization. Carefully select your use cases. Obviously, make sure that where you apply them in the end, even if they succeed, they should have an added value. Don't do AI just for the hype of doing AI. Apply AI in those areas of your organization where today you struggle, where you don't see how you can apply it. That can be again operational efficiency. That can be attracting new client. That could even mean if you're very creative in applying AI and Gen AI to build completely new products out of it. All could work, but start, because it's not something that you learn overnight, not as a person, but also not as an organization. You need to experiment. You need to see for your particular business what works and what doesn't work, and learn from that. And once you start having an idea like, oh, it seems to really bring value in this domain or in that domain, then obviously scale it up. Really make optimally use of that. And see it as a long-term investment. It's not something that you buy. It's not something that you, because that's a typical reaction that you will have and management teams who are not really familiar with it. They just think I go to vendor A, B, C, D and I buy the solution. No, it's a general capability that can be applied everywhere. So you will need to either invest in your own teams doing that, or you need to partner up with other organizations that really can bring you a step forward in those domains. But it will be, for me, one of the toolkits that you have in your toolbox for the next coming years. So learn
As
how
soon
to
as
use
possible.
them. Yeah.
Start as soon as possible. What is the general success rate of initial trial projects? Because I can imagine that businesses would like, even if they are willing, they would like to start early. And even if they are willing to fail early and fail cheap, if they start 10 projects at the same time, for a business that has never done something like this before, what is the success or failure rate that they should expect? And what is it dependent on?
From our experience, the success rate is high. I often hear a lot of companies struggling with that, and they were saying, yeah, the success rate is incredibly low, 20, 30%. That's not the experience that I have. However, you need to be very selective where you apply it. Don't just drop it everywhere in your organization and see, let's give it a try. No, no, no. You need to do your homework. You need to do your testing. You mentioned already some topics. You need to have data on a certain topic. You need to have a good business case on a certain topic. You need to have the infra, the people on a certain topic if you want to explore a certain domain. And these are all things that you can explore and that you can test upfront. Please don't go into it and then afterwards, yeah, we will see what we will do about it. No, you need to do a bit of preparation and homework before you start a new AI use case, in order to make sure that you don't have unexpected or bad surprises afterwards. Still, AI is a domain, not like traditional IT, I would say, or traditional projects, where you don't know what the end result will be. There is a certain level of uncertainty in every AI project, and you need to be able to deal with that. You need to accept that. There's nothing what we can do about it if there's no information in the data that you're using to do your AI project, because in the end, it all starts from the data. You use data to
Mm-hmm.
feed your AI algorithms. If there is no information in it, your project might fail, but let it then fail fast, as you mentioned it yourself. Try. You will very soon see if things are not going in the good direction, and dare to pull out the plug. Then dare to say, look, this is not going well. We expected it to have this. Efficiency improvement, for example, we only see that after a few weeks or a few months of testing, we only get a very, very small proportion of that. we start to see why it is, because you very soon will see, okay, it's the data, it's the knowledge, the algorithms just can't deal with this complexity, and then jump on something else. And that's also why I'm still a very big proponent of the idea of try different things. Don't put all your eggs in the same basket. Try different aspects in the organization. Some will fail. The majority will succeed if you manage them carefully.
Now, AI is a pretty advanced field. It is not like, let's say, implementing the latest version of whatever OS you have installed in your company. So there's a certain hurdle rate when we're talking about investment. There's a certain level of maturity of skills that you need to bring on board, and before you can even start, before you can say, okay, I want to have 10 projects. So how should a business that is thinking about taking up AI for its own use, how should it think about organizational capability rather than bringing in consultants, bringing in experts, bringing in PhDs who might have a, let's say, work 1 or 2 years? What is the difference between getting a consulting company in and structurally thinking about organizational capability? Because let's say you start 10 projects or 5 projects. Ultimately, you want to end up in a stage where you have confidence on organizational capability, whether it's for data, whether it's for IT, whether it's for talent, whether it's for the models. So where does what should you think about when starting with AI projects? What should you think about organizational capability?
Well, it's a good question. Let's go through the whole maturity curve. What you often see is that first companies will still start with consultants, and I think it's also a good idea. It's a knowledge that you don't
Have in
build up.
house.
You don't have it in house. Assume that you don't have it in house. Then you start with doing some proof of concepts with consultants, people that know the domain, that can help you in that, and that can give you really this head start on the project. I think it's the first an important step that you should do. They can also bring in a lot of experience of things that they've tested in other organizations. They know what works, so they know what doesn't work. So that's a good thing. Then the second step is assume that, and that's also what you see very often with companies that are really in the very early stages, they are experimenting a bit all across the organization. There are a few people there, there are a few people there, there are a few people there. From an organizational point of view, this is very inefficient because those people, with all good intentions that they have, they will have different methodologies, use different tools, different concepts
Within the same company.
within the same company, different infrastructure, and they are not sharing knowledge. So you're inefficient at all different levels. So then I advise companies bring them together. Really bring them together in a kind of center of excellence, or however you want to call it. So bring them together, let them work together, give them the same kind of tools, the same working methodologies, bring some management practices in the team. It should become, instead of a set of individuals, it should become one team that works together, where you can benefit from. And then there, I think you very soon will see then very clear advantages, and it will reduce the cost. That you can grow, that you can let grow. And then for me, very often, you come to a moment where you realize that team will start developing competences for a very particular business. And that letting them always sit together in this one central team might become more a disadvantage than an advantage, because they have their competences, they have their competences on a very specific domain. It's better for them to again sit together. For example, you can have this one central AI team Some of them are working with the marketing people, some of them are working with the risk people, of them are working with the operational people, some of them are working with the finance people, but they're even not working together anymore on content basis. And then there is also a moment where you can say, go sit with them, go again into this hub and spoke model where you have one central hub that still guarantees a bit the common infrastructure, methodologies, implementation of AI Act, for example. They oversee that. But for the real business applications, the team really goes back to the different entities, the different departments, and sit very closely to where the problems really are, and try to solve them. So for me, that's a matter of a maturity curve from very dispersed to grouping them together into a center of excellence, into the next level, sending them out again as sub teams. Sub teams where still you need to make sure that the investments in technology, the investments in best practices, the investments in all transversal elements, implementations of regulations are still shared and are still done commonly. That's for me a typical trajectory that the organizational that a company will go through on the different maturity levels of organization.
Mm. So, in a lot of companies, siloed working in the different functions is just taken for granted, is just accepted. So, your advice would be to break down those silos from the
Mm-hmm.
start, because ultimately, AI might be interconnected in what you do.
AI is a very transversal capability that can be applied almost everywhere in the organization. So in the beginning, you really benefit from the fact that it is also by one central team applied transversally within the organization. Um, I'm pretty convinced of that idea. There is a turning point, as I said, but to start with, I think it's very good to bring them together centrally.
Mm-hmm. Now, coming back to the personal front of AI, all of us we also have our personal lives, we have families, some of us have children, and we hear about, as a family or as partners, we hear about AI, we slowly become used to AI. Like you said, it becomes so much an invisible part of the service or the product that we are using, and we stop thinking about it. So, I don't have very young children, but in school anymore. They're still studying, but at university level. So, if there are, if somebody is listening or watching this, and they have young children in school, and those children are aware of AI, let's say, as something which is out there from whatever source, could be Terminator movies, could be something they've read or heard. What would your advice be to these parents if one of their children, let's say, is in the last year of high school, is seriously considering a career in AI? How should these youngsters go about it?
If you're really considering a career in AI, and I can only sponsor that, I'm a big. It's a very good idea. I have a very interesting
I
career
wouldn't
until
have
now.
imagined otherwise, Bart.
Uh, so I am I'm the representation of that will give you a lot of pleasure and fun in your day-to-day job. Um, but let's not forget, as you said, it is quite a technical domain. And for the time being, I think it will still stay like that. Obviously, you see applications, and we will all start using tools which will include AI a bit hidden away, and we still can use them. But if you really would like to make a career out of it, experiment with it, test it. It will require you to get some experience in it. It's not a technique that that works all the time. So experience is like with everything in life is something which is very important. And if it's really the real mathematical details that go behind it, if you really want to be part of the algorithm development, it be prepared to go for studies that have a very serious mathematics component in it. AI is about mathematics. AI is about statistics, about optimization theory. So therefore, it's typically taught at the engineering schools, the mathematics schools, the statistics schools. Um, that knowledge is very, very important if you really would like to have a career in that domain. And then afterwards, obviously, you have the applications. All of the schools today, I think there is not one education that can follow where they will not give you a kind of introduction in AI, from medicine to engineering to potentially even law school. I think everybody will come across something, some courses on AI, and please take them because AI will be a very important element of our toolkit in the next years to come. So the better you also master that toolkit, um, the better you are prepared for your future career.
Will a PhD in some AI topic help? Is it an entry criterion?
For me, not. For me, not. I have on myself. It's not for us something that we select on when we are interviewing people. A PhD is a very, very specific domain. That really means that you want to go deep into the details and you want to improve the algorithms behind that. It's not necessary that you do that and that you need that knowledge to be able to use it. Uh, you can drive a car without knowing what happens in the engine of the car.
Mm.
That's what will happen more and more with AI too. You can use AI techniques for engineering purposes or for other purposes in different elements of society without really knowing what's deep in the engine of AI. Um, it's not that it is necessary. I also the same thing for companies. You don't need always PhDs in AI to succeed with AI projects. Not at all. But the PhDs will be very important to drive the field forward on a research level for sure. And if you really, as an organization, want to change it and be at the forefront of AI, yeah, those companies typically invest in people with a research mindset and will attract them. But it's not a guarantee for success, and it's not also if you want to have a career in AI, it's not for me something which you really need to have a successful career in AI. I think today in our team we have some PhDs in AI, but certainly not the majority. Absolutely not. Even absolutely not.
Last question, Bart. How has AI enriched your life as a person? I mean, if you forget your career, if you forget what you do at work, and even if you, I'm challenging you, even if you forget, let's say, the navigation and all those tools that we've got so used to, how has AI, what you do at work, how has all that enriched you at a personal level?
I was not prepared for that question, but it's a very good one. Let me let me give it some thoughts. What I find interesting about AI, and that it's because it is my job, is also to think about what are the implications of it. It's for me, it goes beyond the technicality. It's also okay, what can it mean in lives? What can it do wrong in lives? How we have already discussed um, about the risks with AI. On AI, it has big societal impacts, and it will have very big societal impacts. So it also triggers you as a human being to think beyond the technicality of the day-to-day in your job, but really to look into the future of the implications of what you're doing, and that makes you richer also as a person. I think there are not potentially not a lot of jobs where you have this, but this domain is certainly is someone where you're every day confronted with the question, okay, but what will that mean not only tomorrow, not only within a year, but within 5 years. And it makes that you're always a bit, you need to zoom out and you need to think a bit broader than the day-to-day job. And that's very fascinating. That's also why I'm almost always reading about it. I'm always looking into to these technologies, not always from the technical point of view, but really what fascinates me is what will be the impact of all of this for society in general.
Great, great answer, Bart. Thank you so much. Thank you. That was it. It's been very enriching. I thought, I had some idea about AI. I do follow AI as well. What really got me going was that book from Nick Bostrom, Superintelligence.
Mm-hmm.
And since then, I've been following AI. Of course, you can't escape Musk saying something or the other on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
But what I learned today specifically about the banking industry, and your perspective on it, and how we should view AI as an inevitable part of our personal and professional life going forwards, has been very insightful. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you for having me.
It was lovely to host you, especially to have you on the very first conversation. And many of the topics that you mentioned have triggered me for something else. So there is still a lot of topics to discuss and a lot of room for debate. So we'll be in touch.